In today's fun-filled video, I'm going to do a review of the VEVOR flooring cutter, and I'm going to show you some other tools you would need to install luxury vinyl tile, and we're going to go over the process of not only using the VEVOR flooring cutter, but also how you would cut this kind of flooring if you don't have one of these cutting tools. So first thing, there was 3 different flooring cutters I looked at. The reason I chose the VEVOR is because it had the highest thickness rating, 16 millimeter. The flooring I'm going to be using in this video is 8 millimeter, which is pretty standard. The other thing was it does rip cuts. Now, all the flooring cutters naturally cut the short end. A rip cut is when you need to cut down the long side. So we're going to go over that and why that's so important to have a flooring cutter for. The other models I looked at was the Marshalltown. That one was rated 12 millimeter. The thing I didn't like about it, it's strictly a flooring cutter for the short side. It cannot do rip cuts and it can't do notch cuts, strictly the short side. That's the easiest cut. That's the one you could do with a razor blade and snapping it method. The other one was, what's it called? The Martistol. Now what I liked about that particular model was it did notch cuts. It did do rip cuts, but it didn't have the thickness capacity. It was only 12 millimeter. And then the other thing with the VEVOR was, as of this video, it's $115 with 10% off. So I got it for about $90. The other 2 models were $150, but I'm going to put a link to all 3 in the video description. Those are the 3 I feel are the best if you're going to get one of these. Some of the other things you're going to need are flooring spacers for installing this flooring, and I like these here style spacers. When you put it down on the flooring up against the wall, there's still enough there to grab and remove from the flooring. So I'll put a link to these in there. And then you're also going to need a standard flooring installation kit. And these kits are all going to be the same. I got this one at Lowe's because I needed it today, not next week. But they're all going to be virtually the same, right around the same price. I'm going to put a link to one on Amazon of one that I like on there as well. But so in these kits, you're going to get a rubber mallet. They're going to come with floor spacers, but I don't like these. These are wedge shaped, and I'll show you here on the floor how these go in, but these don't have anything to grab onto. So when you put these on your flooring up against a wall, they're very hard to remove. So we'll go over that later. The really important thing you need that you can only get in this flooring kit is the metal bar. And we're going to go over why this is important and what you use this for. But so these kits are all going to be right around $25. But installing luxury vinyl tile really isn't that hard, and anybody can do it themselves. I'm going to go over all that later in the video and show you some tips and tricks. So right out of the box is what you have. The main unit, the deck, the handle, the fence. They give you a little pamphlet, and then your tool bag. These are 2 thumb screws for your fence to attach your fence to the deck. They give you a sharpening stone, spare bolts for the blade, which to change out the blade or to remove it to sharpen, you remove all these screws, so just some spare screws. 3 black panhead screws, which is used for attaching the deck to the body, and then the Allen key to tighten those screws down. So assembly is very easy. You're just going to line up these 3 screw holes with the holes in the body, just like that, and then use your Allen key to insert your 3 black panhead screws. That's how we're going to attach the deck to the body. Now to attach the fence, you'll notice there's 2 nuts in this groove, 2 in this groove, and 1 in this groove. So to attach your fence across this way to line up for rip cuts, you would just put 1 thumb screw through here to attach it into this, and then 1 over here on this side. And then you have a measurement scale on the deck. Unfortunately, it's only in metric, which is one thing I didn't like about this model. There's no inch measurements. To put it the other way, for a short end cut, you just swivel it around and you would attach it in just the 1 groove side, like that. And then if you want to use your angle notches, which 45, 30, and 22.5, which are very, very accurate, you would simply remove both thumb screws, put 1 thumb screw in the center pivot point, and you're going to be using these innermost holes, and then the other thumb screw in the captured nut on this. and then line it up wherever you need it. Final part of assembly is going to be your handle, and you're going to see you have two plunge style knobs. So the first knob, you're going to lift up to lock it onto the body, and then the other plunge knob you're going to lift up to extend the handle out. And there's only this notch and this notch. From there, press the handle down, and you're going to have a pin here you need to remove to unlock the blade. So press that down and remove that, and now it's ready to be used. And when you go to pack this away when you're done, simply push it back down to lock the blade in a closed position and slide your pin back through. Remove your handle, remove the other components, and box it back up. So I have some scraps of flooring from my project yesterday that we're going to be using today to demonstrate this. So we're going to put this in here. And you'll notice this comes down at an angle. I believe other ones cut straight down. It's hard to tell from their provided pictures. But this one is going to work kind of like a paper cutter. And it does cut fairly easily. Now what I'm using here is 8mm luxury vinyl tile. The machine is rated again for 16mm, so I'm only using half of its noted capacity. So the end cuts are easy enough. Now let's look at a rip cut. Now again, make sure your measurements are the same on both sides so you know you're getting a straight cut. And then we'll make a rip cut this direction. It's another reason why I bought this machine. Again, not only is it capable of rip cuts, but it can do very long and deep rip cuts. Now you can only go, you see the throat end is right there, so I gotta slide this out a bit more. But if the throat's not deep enough for how far you need to cut, you just back it up and cut from the other side. So it will cut anywhere you need to on this flooring. The only other machine that does a rip cut says to do it incrementally. You do like a light score and then go back through and cut it the rest of the way. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna kind of work this around, and you'll see what I mean here. Just kind of do an impression, slide it down. And do that first light score and then go back through and finish it. And there we have a nice clean rip cut. Now I'm going to show you again how to cut this flooring if you don't have one of these cutters. And for all these rip cuts, you have to run them through a table saw. And that makes a ton of dust. So that's where this machine is great, if you can make these rip cuts along with the end cuts, which again is why I didn't choose a Marshalltown. Marshalltown only does these end cuts like I had first demonstrated. It won't do these long rip cuts. So now let's go ahead and demonstrate an angle cut. We'll set this at 45 degrees. So there we have it at our 45. Nice and easy. And you'll see it is spot on. Again, yesterday I was cutting 45 and 22.5 degrees, and this machine was dead on. So I was very happy with the accuracy of it. So one final word on this before we put this away and go into how you would cut this stuff without a flooring cutter. I know we all want to see it to its maximum capacity. So let's put 2 layers of flooring on here and let's see how well it does. So I have 2 stacked up, so this is 16mm. It's full capacity. And you'll notice it's also right where the top of the fence is. That honestly was just as easy as the 1 layer. So yes, it will do 16mm. Now one final note on this, and it's more of a how to use it situation. If you're going to be doing notch cuts like this, if you just come down through here first, it's going to split across here, across this thinner side. You need to do, I recommend doing this cut with a jigsaw and then doing your first pass and second pass on that side to cut it. Again, if you try to cut this way, it could split, or if you try and cut that way all in one chunk, it can split. That was the only issue I had yesterday. So just make one cut with the jigsaw and then the other one. Okay, so you don't own a VEVOR machine or any kind of cutting machine, but you want to do your luxury vinyl tile. Here's how it's traditionally done. I'm going to use combination square for my edge, for my straight edge, and a razor blade. You would just score it. Say score it twice. 3 times is even better. And then from there, you can bend it over your knee. Now, if you just try and rip it like this, you're going to rip the padding unevenly. So you can either bend it the opposite way to get a cleaner cut, or take your razor blade on the back side. But so that's all you do for your end cuts. Now, the rip cuts is where you really need a flooring cutter or a table saw. These do not work out well. So let me use this straight edge to score it. I'm going to do this just about in half, eyeballing it. There's 3 good scores. Now, especially on a longer piece, you can't bend it over your knee, so you have to use pliers. But here's the problem with that. Right there. That's what happens. If it's too deep in, which is why I did this one almost halfway through, you're going to keep taking chunks out until you finally get in close enough to be able to break it at the score line. So you have to use a table saw. That's where this flooring cutter machine is very, very beneficial. So now moving on to just quickly go over how to even install this flooring. If you look closely, you'll see the channel and how it interlocks. Now, I've always done it like this, where I start with the female end as the end is getting cut off, and the male end is what I'm hooking into, because it's easier to hook it that way than to try and hook under if there's debris on the floor. Obviously, sweep your floor, get a nice clean level subsurface. To interlock it, all you're doing is putting it under here and then hooking it. If it does not lay flat, it's because you don't have it fully locked in. If it's sticking up even a little bit, it's not fully locked in. Let me get 2 longer pieces to see if I can show you that. And this is kind of a pro tip if you find yourself struggling to get it to lay flat. So these are 2 partial pieces, but our lip edges are there. So you're going to lock them in, and this one's sitting up. You can see the bounce. It's a very, very fine separation, but you've got to get it hooked all the way in. And I just felt it right here where I just pressed it in. That's what was missing. But again, if it doesn't sit totally flat on its own, it's because this channel isn't fully locked and you just have to push it in farther. Now, something you don't need to be too concerned about is the ends of the panels. Now, I don't have another end to show you how they interlock, but on the ends, it's a very, very fine interlocking edge, and they don't always seat. And so what's going to happen is you'll have your flooring down there, and let's pretend this is our other end. They're not going to be hooked together. One might be sticking up even though they're locked on this side. It might not be fully locked into this on this short edge. Don't worry about it. When you hook your next piece, let me spin this around for reference. When you hook your next piece this direction, that's going to lock this seam. So as you work your way across the floor, it will sit flat. So don't be too concerned about this. That's kind of a pro tip. If you're driving yourself nuts and you wonder what you're doing wrong, it's not you. These ends are very, very hard to get interlocked sometimes. So don't pay too much mind to that as long as your long edge is fully in the groove and locked down. Now, in the beginning of the video, I mentioned the spacers. Here's where those come into play. Let's say this is our wall. Once we get down to our last piece, again, we want to keep a 1/4 inch gap around the entire perimeter of the wall. These blue spacers are great. We can put these up against there. Let's say this is our first wall, so we're working out. So when we're all finished the floor and we want to remove these spacers, we can grab them and remove them. Easy enough. With the spacers that are provided in the kit, they would be sitting flat up against there's nothing to grab a hold of to get them out. So you see the dilemma? So you want to buy aftermarket spacers like this and not use the ones that come in the kit. The reason you need to maintain that 1/4 inch gap around, typically how this flooring gets installed is they will not remove the trim that's already on your wall. They'll put this flooring down and you'll leave that 1/4 inch gap because you need it so the flooring can expand and contract with the climate and the temperature changes in the house. So that's what the 1/4 inch gap is for. Then what they'll do is they'll put down typically a 1/4 round piece of trim to cover the gap, and that'll go up against your existing trim work around the base of your wall. So they won't be pulling all that trim off, which is good. Less chance of damage to the walls. So that's why you need these and why you need that gap. Now the bar I had mentioned that comes in the flooring installation kit, here's where that comes in use. You have a wide end and a narrow end, and you'll also notice this isn't quite as deep as this. Here's where this comes into play. When, let's say the box is our wall, we have our final piece put down in this row. I told you before, don't worry about interlocking this channel, but you also don't want a gap there. You still want it butted up nice and flush so there's no gap in the floor, even if it's not interlocked. When you get down to against the wall, this bar fits right in that smooth area against the wall, and then you use your mallet to hit it down until it's flush up against the other piece. Without this bar, there'd be no way of moving this piece of flooring down. That pretty much covers my review of the VEVOR flooring cutter, how to cut the flooring if you don't have a cutter, and the overall installation of luxury vinyl tile. Kind of a Cliff Notes version, if you will. I really hope this video helped you out. If it did, please hit it with a like and subscribe to the channel. Always more stuff coming. Thanks for watching.